So the conference that we are organizing today is part of a research project of the same name, which is a collaboration between the Center for Policy Research in Delhi and the Christian Michelsen Institute and the University of Bergen in Norway. And we are very fortunate to have with us today the entire project team. So I have on my right Professor C.D. Gloppen, who is a professor of comparative politics at the University of Bergen and a senior researcher at the Christian Michelsen Institute. And I have also Kavita Nalani, who is a postdoctoral researcher at CMI, and Hugo, who is also at the CMI. He's a researcher there. CD is going to speak in a few minutes and talk more about the project and perhaps about CMI as well. But I'm just going to go ahead and talk about the Center for Policy Research and introduce the team from CPR. We're a very small team, and the team includes, apart from me, Pallav Shukla, who I think just stepped out. But I think you all know him because you've been getting a lot of emails from him, and he's really been the man behind the show. And we also have Sonam Malhotra, who's just going to come up and who's also been helping with this conference and the project. So I want to outline the plan for the conference today. We have 3 panels. I just want to introduce Sonam and Pallav who have been helping on this project. I want to outline the plan for the conference today, which is we're going to have 3 panels on Meghalaya, Gujarat and Andhra Pradesh. And we're going to start with the panel on Meghalaya. We're running a little late, which is okay for the Delhi winter. And we're going to start with the Meghalaya panel in about 10 or 15 minutes. And then we'll go on till maybe about noon. And we'll have a tea break then. And then that will be followed with the Gujarat panel. And then the panel on Andhra Pradesh will be after lunch. So to tell you a little bit about the project and the conference, the idea behind the project is to investigate issues relating to property rights of tribals and other traditional communities to land and natural resources, as well as look at environmental concerns and issues of inclusive sustainable development within the framework of India's federal-state relations, with reference to the provisions particularly in the 5th and the 6th schedules to the Constitution, which contain specific provisions for governance of areas that are scheduled areas as described under the 5th and the 6th schedule. So the first panel, as I mentioned, is the Meghalaya panel, and we have our panelists here, starting with Mr. B.G. Varghese, who we're very fortunate to have him here. He's a very senior journalist and has been the former editor of the Hindustan Times and the Indian Express and a recipient of the Magsaysay Award. He is one of the senior-most faculty members at CPR, and before I ask CD to tell you about the project, I would actually request him to speak a few words about the Center for Policy Research and about how this project fits in or complements work that has been done at the CPR and the CPR is committed to doing. Thank you, Mr. Varghese.
Thank you.
Mic on,
Ladies and gentlemen.
mic on.
By the new Assam time, we are starting early, so we don't need to worry. That's good. I welcome the Assam time. We're talking about land rights, environmental protection, and inclusive development. And this has been sponsored by the CPR in collaboration with colleagues from Norway, University of Bergen, and the Christian Michelsen Institute, also in Bergen. And we're particularly glad that Professor Gloppen from those 2 institutions and another of our colleagues from Norway are here. Welcome to our cold winter. You must feel at home as though you're in Norway. The CPR is a think tank. It was founded about 35 years ago, and it was part of the new family of the Indian Council for Social Science Research. It deals with policy issues, so that not looking at outcomes, but policies and how they're shaped, and how good or bad they are, and whether different policy initiatives could be taken up. So it has played that role, and it has had a faculty of both elderly people who are retired and not really scholars, but like me, I'm a fellow, but I classify myself as a jolly good fellow rather than a fellow. I'm not an academic at all, and but a journalist. They're good people, journalists, and I think that has helped to bring the experience of people who've been working in government or in corporate world or in medicine, law, journalism, or in academia, to bring to bear their experience and wisdom on these issues, together with young research scholars who are the real brains trust of our think tank. People like Namita and Kavita and Sonam and Pallav and the others. They are the driving force. We have looked at a number of issues dealing with the whole spectrum of social sciences. We're not rooted in any particular branch, but we keep on shifting, and it's built around the scholars that we have and the interest they bring to bear. New programs have been started because a particular individual has come with a certain interest, which fits into the general scheme of things about policy thinking. When I joined, we started a water resources section, and also had some people look at the Northeast, two areas that I've been interested in a general way. We don't have any water unit today. We don't have any Northeast unit today as such per se. But the interest is still there. Likewise, various other fields that people have brought into the corpus of the CPR's work because of their particular initiatives and expertise there. We've also had people from government work with us as fellows, serving officers of government. That practice was quite lively at one time, but it has faded away. Otherwise, we used to have people of the rank of directors to government, joint secretaries, and even secretary-level officers come and spend some time with us as a sabbatical to think over what they've been doing in terms of the policy fields and what they might be doing in terms of the new assignments they were moving to. That has been a very productive interaction. But apart from that, we have a live contact with every section of society, with government, with the corporate world, with the Planning Commission, with banks, with foreign scholars and universities and so on. So it's a very eclectic body, and we have proceeded on that basis. Now, this workshop is a particular interest to us because, as I say, one of our earlier interests, and which is not lost entirely, is tribal policies in the Northeast, and the dispossessed and the marginalized, and land issues with that. And even as recently as a year ago, I think there's a little consultation paper that's been circulated where we looked at issues of the tribal rights and the fifth schedule. So that's a continuing interest. And in this, we are therefore very much in line with the kind of activities that are being taken up under this project of land rights, environmental protection, and inclusive development in India, dealing with not only with tribal people, but other traditional communities and marginalized sections. The case studies that have been taken up have already been described in 3 states. I'm supposed to speak about Meghalaya. I'm no expert. The expert is sitting on my right here. But we are very concerned about these matters because this kind of exclusion in tribal areas particularly, but elsewhere too, has led to the neglect of tribal peoples, of their marginalization, resulting in fertile ground for left-wing extremism, as we call it. Now, these are issues that are very much part of our general concerns, and this seminar, therefore, will help us to think more clearly about some of the issues pertaining to some of the areas that we are going to be talking about. So I welcome you all again, and on behalf of the CPR, I'm sorry that our president and chairman are both otherwise engaged out of the country. Otherwise, they would have been here. But on their behalf and on behalf of the CPR, I wish you all a very warm welcome and look forward to a very productive seminar. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Verghese. Now I'll ask Siri to speak about the project and about the CMI.
Thank you, Namita. First, I'd like to take this opportunity to, of course, welcome you all, but also thank the CPR and Namita in particular, and Palau, for the great work that they've put into putting together this excellent, excellent program, and generally for all the work of putting together the conference, which is required quite a bit of logistics. The Christian Michelsen Institute, the name is often confusing because people think it has something to do with Christianity. It's named after the Prime Minister who was Norwegian Prime Minister at the time of Norwegian independence. And he was a rich man, he was the shipping magnate. And when he died, he gave his fortune a large part of it, to a Center for Excellent Research. So the center was established around 80 years ago to do research in different fields. And it's fascinating to listen to what Mr. Verghese just said about the CPR, because it's in many ways quite similar. It started sort of doing research in all kinds of fields, but in the 1950s, it started focusing particularly on development research. And it established a program called Development Research for Action, which looked at trying to do research of practical use for developing countries. And the researchers were required to work for extended periods, years, in different countries. And also there was a large extent of exchange between people coming from various countries around the world to stay and work at the CMI, as we call it, and the other way around. And I think that we share a commitment to be practical, to work close to policy, and to be relevant in relation to issues on the ground and in the world. And around 30 years ago, the CMI established a human rights program, which has been running for many years and has different forms. And part of this is work looking at the role of law and legal institutions in relation to social and political change. And this program that sort of came out of different types of work that Namita has been doing and we've been doing before, and Kavita as well, comes within this program, that trying to look at the role of law and social transformation. We were sort of the puzzle that started this research program was the role that in the context of the Indian development strategy, which focuses on industrial development for a large part, and which sort of increases the stress and the battle over resources and land in particular, and where land needed for development purposes also sort of the use of land also risks marginalization of vulnerable population groups, but also environmental degradation. How the laws put in place to try and shield these groups, shield these concerns, work differently in different parts of the country, and in many cases does not work as sort of intended, or at least ostensibly in the letter of the law. So we were sort of trying to look at how the law plays into different types of social and political dynamics in different parts of the country, and that's the sort of concern that then sort of from which the project was born. And I think that we're very fortunate to, from the perspective of the project, we're really fortunate to have sort of Kavita with her background in law and land rights, extensive, that she will develop within this project further, looking at how issues of property rights and related rights are sort of differ in different parts of the country, and how this enables different people to use the law for different concerns. And also Kavita, with her background in political federal relations in particular, how sort of the law plays into different political dynamics in different parts of the country. And also Hugo, who has a background in looking at minority rights in particular. So and as I also have a background in legal mobilization, the role of legal institutions in various parts of the world. So we think that we have quite a good team for sort of focusing on these issues and for reaching out to other researchers on the ground in India and drawing. This is the nucleus that will start the project, but hopefully we're hoping to build more of a team with also people here today on to do this work in the next 3 years, at least 3-4 years. So this is I think enough on the background of the project. This is of course we've done some work already, but this is really the kickoff for the project. This is where the project starts, and we're just incredibly grateful for those of you who've come to share your knowledge with us, to enable us to sort of build on what the work that has been done already, and also who've come to be part of this discussion. We've set this up with short presentations, relatively 15 minutes or so, and then quite a lot of time for discussion for each panel. And we really, really would like you to come with your questions, comments, criticisms, suggestions, and be part of this deliberation over issues that are of common concern. So, thank you.
Thank you, Siri. And I think Siri's been quite modest, but she's not just does have a background in law and social transformation, but has done extensive work in other areas, health rights, sexual and reproductive rights, etc. And she's had a lot of experience running large projects like this. So we are very fortunate indeed to have her guidance. So I think we can now start with the first panel. But before we do that, I just want to emphasize again what Siri said about collaboration, because one of the things that we realized fairly quickly when we started working on this project is that for a country the size of India, with the issues as complex and diverse as there are in all of these states, there is only so much that all of us can do within the period of time that we have. And so that's why we're very fortunate to have our speakers. And the plan for this conference is to really start off a dialogue and a process that I hope will continue over the years and help us really do some solid work on some of these issues in these states. So with that, we're about 15 minutes into our starting time and for the first panel. So I think we'll go up till noon for this panel. And now I'll hand over to Kavita, who's going to chair the first panel on Meghalaya in the 6th schedule.
Thank you, Mr. B.G. Varghese and Siri, for giving us such a good start to the backdrop of this conference. And let me just very briefly introduce our panelists. First is Mr. B.G. Varghese, who is, as he himself has said a couple of minutes back, he has been a fellow at CPR, he has been a columnist and an author. And we would start with Mr. B.G. Varghese, followed by Mr. H.H. Morman. Help me, Morman is from Jovai district in Meghalaya, and he's a social activist. For past 15 years, he's been intensely involved with anti-mining activities and civil society articulation in the state of Meghalaya. And the last speaker for today would be Dr. Melville Pereira. He is the director of Northeastern Social Research Center, Guwahati, and he has finished his PhD from Jawaharlal Nehru University on customary law in the Northeast. Unfortunately, our fourth panelist, Professor Apurba Barua, has taken ill and he would not be able to join us.